Hello, my friends, and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. A very interesting piece of news coming from Business Insider. So it's not coming from a Russian media outlet or a Chinese media outlet or something that might talk positively about any Russian achievements. But in this case, this comes from Business Insider. And I was very much surprised to read the title and really claiming that's possible because that runs really against the narrative that these guys are putting together, which is the Russians figured out the wheel a year and a half ago. Or maybe they just came out of a cave, 3 or 4 years ago. And without the help of these geniuses here, they didn't know that fire exists, or I don't know, things like this. So I'm surprised to read this kind of article, which attacks actually the American military-industrial complex. Oh, that's a no-no, dissent is not allowed. So we have this article from Business Insider, and this is the title. Russia is jamming sophisticated US weapons being used in Ukraine, making them useless, report says. And people are thinking, how in the hell that's possible? I thought that these guys just figured out that there is a wheel that they can use about what? A year and a half ago. And just look at this, the first sentence. Actually, it's the right here. This is not that one because it's right there you go. Russia is disabling sophisticated missiles that Ukraine's Western allies provided by scrambling their GPS coordinates, according to reports. Interesting. Russia can disable US-made Ukrainian missiles because some use GPS signals. Both sides are waging a battle to jam the electronics of missiles and other weapons. Russia's electronic warfare capability has evolved during the conflict. So Brian Clark, a senior fellow at Hudson Institute, a US think tank, told BBC News that Russia's electronic warfare capability has significantly improved during the conflict with Ukraine. I told you about the wheel. Now I understand that during the conflicts you adjust, according to whatever the enemy brings. And if you're capable, you would improve your defenses or offensive capabilities. He said that Russia was now deploying hundreds of small mobile electronic warfare units along the front line, having previously relied on large, cumbersome units that could be easily targeted. Clark told BBC that Russia's technologies were able to jam missiles' GPS coordinates, disable Ukrainian drones, and suppress Russian radar signals that were used by Ukraine to identify targets to attack. One such system, the R-330ZH ZTEL, is able to suppress satellite signals. And I'm quoting, ZTEL can jam a GPS signal within 30 kilometers of the jammer. Clark said, for weapons like JDAM bombs, which use just a GPS receiver to guide it to the target, that's sufficient to lose its geolocation and go off target. It is not the first time concerns have raised about the effectiveness of Joint Direct Attack Munition, or JDAMs, in Ukraine, with the UK think tank, the Royal United Service Institute, in January, citing leaked US documents in which officials expressed concern that Russia was jamming JDAM GPS coordinates. Now, JDAM bombs are among the weapons that US has provided Ukraine with and can be launched by air to hit targets up to 45 miles away. Like many long-range missiles, they rely on GPS coordinates to reach their targets. They have a greater range than HIMARS, long-range missiles that Ukraine used to drive back the Russian forces in a counteroffensive last year. Yeah, the 15 HIMARS, or 12, they're able to destroy them. But somehow Poland, I have a problem with this. Maybe you already know. Poland ordered 500 HIMARS. And this guy supposedly with about 12 pushed the Russians back. I don't believe it. They either had much more HIMARS, or they didn't push anybody back, or I don't know what to say. Those guys are really not ineffective. Because if you order 500 and these guys were 15 are pushing back the Russians, then the Poles want to do what? Reach Vladivostok or reach Washington, D.C.? Which one? Both? Oh, anyway. They were also one of the weapons that Ukraine's Western allies hoped could help Ukraine in its new counteroffensive to drive back Russian invaders. But if they say here, they mention this. So these guys are also GPS? If they're also GPS, guided, then the whole story and the narrative about how fantastic HIMARS is then crumbles. But Russian defenses have proven resilient against Western supplied weapons, with Western tanks largely ineffective. We knew that. In the face of the huge minefields Russia has created to defend its position in south and east Ukraine. Western offensive tactics have so far not secured Ukraine a decisive breakthrough. So then they put this one here. Why don't you take that out? Secure, because not decisive. So they are having kind of like a breakthrough, but not decisive. Weasel. The BBC reported that Ukraine is seeking to eliminate Russian electronic warfare units before it launches missile strikes in a game of cat and mouse, or target them once they detect Russian attempts to block missile coordinates. Well, good. Do this. They mentioned the sophisticated American weapons. So how are they going to bomb the Russians? Just with a regular string pulled boom 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 boom, like in the Second World War on the Russian front? Is that how they're going to do it? Anyway, for me that's not surprising. These are surprised because they think the Russians are somehow cavemen or something, and that's when you look down on your enemy, and then when you go and fight the enemy, you realize, wait a second, he is stronger than I thought, because you started with an ideology, you started with a little how should I call it? Wishful thinking mentality. Oh my God, no, it's going to be like that. Yeah, it's going to be like that. Instead of just going and finding out how good the opponent's army is. So this is a little piece of information, surprisingly coming from Business Insider, because maybe some generals are going to knock at Business Insider and tell them that, hey, our weapons are the best. Stop promoting the Russians. Or are you Putin's buddies? Anyway, not surprising. And I'm pretty sure the other ones do the same thing. So it's back and forth. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just.